Hello everybody, welcome back to my chaotic little channel where I talk about what I've been reading. I've not been very well for the last few weeks, which if you've watched any of my previous videos, you'll definitely be able to tell. I've still got the bags under my eyes. Hopefully there's less kind of pausing to cough and snort this time, but I didn't get round to doing an October wrap-up video, and there's probably not a lot of point in me doing a November one because I'm focusing so much on reading festive murder mysteries at the moment. So my plan going forward, now that booker season is over, is to read plenty festive murder mysteries so I can give you the lowdown on those. Get up to scratch with my fantasy reading because I'm still buddy reading Eye of the World and I'm reading The Will of the Many, which is amazing. It's also non-fiction November, so I will probably do a little video about what I've read for that in a couple of weeks' time. All in all, I haven't really given you an update of this huge stack of books that I've read. Some of them I did as part of HRCYED videos, others as part of booker videos, so I figured I would just, go through them. Death of the Author by Nnedi Okorafor. This was an interesting book because for the vast majority of this book I did not want to pick it up. I was bored. I didn't really feel like there was anything pushing me through the story. So it's essentially the story of a young woman who, following an accident where she fell out of a tree, has lost the use of her legs and uses a wheelchair, and she has a very unsupportive family. Now, the family are from Nigeria and are currently living in America. So Zelu becomes a popular author, writing a sci-fi book about robots, and gets approached by a guy with lots and lots of money in tech who helps her with some technological aids to mobility, which brings on a whole conversation about techno-ableism. And meanwhile you've got the threads of her story about the robots going through between, so you've got a story within a story as well. And the trouble was, every time I started getting into either of the stories, you'd be pulled out and dragged into the other one. So as soon as you're intrigued about the robots, you find out what's happening to Zelu, and a lot of the pacing is just very plodding. So you don't really get a lot of kind of intrigue and draw. And it was only by the second half that I did actually start to feel more invested and care more about the characters. And I think if you spent that long with characters, you do start to care about them. By the time I got to the end of this book, I was invested, and particularly in what was happening to Zelu, I cared about her as a character. She's flawed, she's grumpy, she's extremely stubborn, she's a brilliantly realised character. So there was lots to love about this, and the reviews on Goodreads seem to be quite Marmite, so a lot of people love it, a lot of people hate it, but it has a lot of African futurism in it, which I loved. And yeah, the disability representation could be seen as positive, could be seen as negative, depending on the way that you look at it. Zelu gets some like prosthetic add-ons, like I can't remember what they call them, like an exoskeleton that kind of helps her move about. And yeah, so it does raise kind of questions about whether, is this technology being seen as a solution to the disability that she faces, or is it something that again is a tool that she's using for her mobility, like you'd use a wheelchair? And yeah, it doesn't give us the answers, and it was an interesting exploration. I think the author's general vibe towards future technology and AI and that sort of thing is a lot more positive than mine and a lot of the people I know's kind of attitude towards it. Yeah, it was a very interesting book to read. I just found that the story was quite hard to get into from a plot point of view. I also read Will There Ever Be Another You by Patricia Lockwood. I absolutely love Patricia Lockwood, and this book ranged from genius to tedious. So some of these chapters, I mean, the opening short story was just incredible. It just gave me all the feels. It's about a family trip to Scotland. It's billed as a novel, but I'm pretty sure this is autofiction. Like, I am, and also reading this made me think that perhaps her other novel was a lot more memoir than I gave it credit for at the time. Patricia Lockwood is a poet, and her way with words is stunning. I'm so envious of the way she puts together ideas and the way she expresses herself with language. She is amazing. And I kind of feel like even if she agreed with the criticisms of this book, she'd probably just be like, well, that's where the muse took me, that's what you're getting, because you get the impression that she's a very poetic mind. And so some of this was fantastic. The first couple of chapters were brilliant. So the holiday in Scotland that her family went on said so much in, and if that was a short story, it would be one of my favourite short stories, because it was just so moving. And then it goes into the lockdown and the pandemic, and she starts to almost detach from her body. Could be that she's experiencing the physical manifestations of long COVID, but it does seem to be affecting her psychologically in ways that are a lot more complex than that. So yeah, it's difficult. It never really tells you what's going on with the character. From a medical point of view, it's more what's going on from a poetic point of view. But I really, really related to her experiences, and that the way that the body and the mind interact to create these symptoms, and I really related to that, and I thought it was so brilliantly put out there. And this would probably work for her kids' disability representation too, because long COVID and the manifestations, both physical and mental, absolutely is a disability. If it was more clearly written about, that would definitely be a very good option for that prompt. In the middle, there's a lot of stuff about adapting her work for screen that I didn't care about. I'm not that interested in celebrity, and some of it didn't make a whole lot of sense. There's a bit where she's reading Tolstoy on mushrooms, and again, I was less interested in that. And it seemed to be the bits where she was talking in third person that worked better than the bits when she wasn't. So I love Patricia Lockwood. I will continue to read everything she puts out. Very, very envious of her unique voice and her weirdness and her creativity. An Agatha Christie that I loved, Dumb Witness, which has got Bob the dog. I'm reading the Hercule Poirot's in order. This was the next one on the list. I think the thing I loved most about this one was all the zany characters that Poirot meets. He's a little bit shady, kind of going around pretending to be various people to get information. But yeah, it was all of Agatha Christie's books are, they're the originals. So although there was a lot of stuff from the TV adaptation that I loved that wasn't in the book, this was still a charming little murder mystery. And yeah, I'm using that one for animals prompt, which hopefully I'll be able to tell you about shortly. Following on from that, I then read Death on the Nile, which is possibly my favourite Hercule Poirot mystery to date. And I really wish I hadn't known who'd done this one, because it would have been like mind-blowing. But this one had so many vibes. It's just, you feel like you're floating down the Nile. It's full of glamour. It's full of history. It's definitely romanticising a period of time, but I loved it. There are loads and loads and loads of characters in this one, and I would say this is probably my favourite Poirot. Is it as good as The Murder of Roger Ackroyd? And Then There Were None is also Agatha Christie, but not Poirot, but probably her best. Is it as good as those two works? I don't know. But honestly, if you're not reading them in order and you just want to read some of them, definitely this is one that you have to consider. Speaking of murders, if you want to hear me moan about this one for 10 whole minutes, just click on my HRCYED subgenres chat and, you know, wind me up and watch me go. This was absolutely dreadful. This is supposed to be one of the best hard-boiled novels of all time, and I hated it. I hated the sexist writing, I hated the main character, he was completely devoid of charm. He, you know, I have no problem with morally grey protagonists, but this guy, oh, he was so dull, and he was so, and all these women were throwing themselves at him, and he's just, I'm trying to think of a way of doing this without swearing. He's just a piece of work. And the story wasn't that interesting either. I mean, I suppose you do have certain noir vibes, you know, it's set in rainy, was it LA? I don't know, it was a city in the 40s, I think. But yeah, there was a lot of kind of chasing around after falcons. Not real falcons. The main character doesn't really care what's going on, so why should any of us? And we don't care what's happening to him because, you know, because he's awful. A better murder mystery set in probably around the same time period. This is in post-war Osaka, Murder in the House of Omari by Taku Ashibe. This book was brilliant. It's written by a contemporary author writing, so it's historical fiction basically, historical Japanese mystery. It was very interesting to read a book set in that time period from the Japanese perspective. Lots of various murders happening in this department store. Yeah, the bodies stack up, the detectives stack up as well. At one point we had like 3 or 4 different detectives all turning up and trying to solve this mystery. And yeah, it really does, it brings to life the destruction that occurred in this district at the time, but also gives us a pretty decent murder mystery plot with lots of different clues and threads to hang on to. I do enjoy a good Japanese mystery, and this one set in a department store at the time, with various confusing things happening, multiple bodies. I thought it was really good, so check that out if you like a good Japanese noir mystery. In Booker territory, I've already dedicated an entire video to this book, although I was quite wheezy at the time. Flesh has now won the Booker, so well done to David Shalhoub. And this was not the best book on the list, but it was certainly an interesting one, well worth reading. So this is the book about a young man called Istvan, and it's essentially the story of his life. He starts off in Hungary, some bad things happen to him and he ends up migrating to the UK, and his life goes kind of up and down from there. Starts off where he's basically being groomed into an inappropriate sexual relationship with one of his neighbours, and reading all of that is extremely uncomfortable because it's described in graphic detail. Obviously it's an abusive relationship on account of their ages, and then and then disaster strikes following on from that, and things kind of get worse for Istvan. He ends up in the UK, and I won't kind of tell you anything further from there because the story kind of hops forward. And honestly, one of the things from Pop Sugar from last year was you know, read a book based on the last line, which is an absolutely terrible prompt because, you know, how are you supposed to read a book based on the last line? But I'm telling you, if you're still doing Pop Sugar from last year and you want to read a book based on the last line, this book has a devastating last line. Worth knowing, worth noting. And the other book that I read from the Booker shortlist was one that I thought was gonna win. Was Flashlight by Susan Choi. Now, for a book that has extremely hard to love characters, I was particularly invested in this one. It starts off on a beach in Japan, and a 10-year-old girl is walking with her father, and she comes around on the beach with just the flashlight that they took, and her father is gone, presumed dead. And it's about everything that leads up to that and comes since. And it's a family saga that spans Japan, Korea, America, and Europe as well, and just what happens to these characters and how they relate to each other. And it really got under my skin in a way that quite a lot of books don't manage. So I was really impressed by that. And they're all very flawed, and they all behave in hurtful ways to each other, and it's like quietly devastating. And also it has a lot to say about Korea, North and South Korea, Japan politics. So I would recommend it if you're interested in that part of the world. There's lots of geopolitical issues discussed in here as well. It's a long book, and yeah, it got under my skin. I would have liked for either this or Audition to win the Booker, but Flesh was also a pretty decent winner. I don't know if I've talked about this already or not. Fourth Wing. I finished Fourth Wing. Now, this is the TikTok sensation that millions and millions of people are reading. It's a smutty romantasy with all the tropes. And it's very cliched. It's very the modern writing does kind of jar a little bit, in that they're in this kind of castle-y world full of mage light, and they're all talking like you know. By the end, like the action, from about halfway through, I was in. And I like they're cliches for a reason. They're cliches and tropes because people like them, because they work. You know what you're getting at yourself in with Fourth Wing. It was good fun, and by the time I got into it, when I got to like the kind of final battles and things like that, and when the action starts happening, it did keep me up all night. When you pick up Fourth Wing, you're not expecting it to be A Song of Ice and Fire or Assassin's Apprentice. You're expecting it to be a romance-driven, Hogwartsy-like scenario. I would say there were things that I liked a bit more about this, but I can't really go into that without there being spoilers. Yeah. I won't spoil it for you. You'll enjoy Fourth Wing. It was very long for a book of this type, but yeah, lots of yearning. We all like a bit of yearning. I absolutely adored this book. This is a book I've been meaning to read for a while. It's a book that I haven't really seen on much social media, and it has an absolutely incredible cover that I'm wondering if you could class it as teal for the purpose of HRCYED. I'm laughing because there's been so many discussions about what classifies as teal. But this is The Key in the Lock by Beth Underdown, and this is a gothic mystery in the style, almost in the style of Rebecca. It's a bit du Maurier. You know, you've got a blustery, decaying old house where most of the action takes place. There's been a fire. We're in dual timelines, so we've got a current day timeline and a past timeline. Now, to be very, very clear, if you know, there is a lot of tragedy in this book, starting off with child death and bereavement. If you're in a particularly delicate frame of mind, I'd probably, you know, it does open on a very, very sad note. That does get absorbed in the general vibes because this is a very atmospheric book. There are lots of characters, there's lots of things going on, you want to know what's going on, and I absolutely loved the atmosphere, and it's every bit as atmospheric as the cover would suggest. This book was fantastic. I would definitely put it on your radar. It would have been a 5-star book for me if there had been some mild tweaks to the solutions, as it were, and I absolutely can't go into those without telling you exactly what I would have done differently, for which I would ruin the ending. So I'm not going to. You're not going to get any spoilers from me. It is still very, very much worth a read, and I would read something else by the author. It has also been blurbed by Stewie T, my absolute fave. Very good gothic historical mystery right there for you. So that was my October and most of my November. For the rest of the year, it's mostly going to be Christmas mysteries from here on in, although we do have some books that I'm currently trying to finish off. So we've got non-fiction November, and we've got a few more bits and bobs that I'm already reading. And of course, I'm still proceeding with HRCYED, which I'm hoping I'll be able to finish a prompt sooner or later. So that's where we're up to, and thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed listening to me chat, then hit the subscribe button and we shall meet again. Take care everybody, bye bye.